How are you?
Hey, baby, I brought my mama back.
Thank you for coming.
Chris.
Thank you. Hey,
How you doing?
pleasure coming. See you. Good evening. How are you? Good to see you.
Chris, Rick Miller.
Good to see you, Rick.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you. See you, man.
Mr.
Thanks for coming.
President.
Excuse me, how are you? Hey, man. How are you? Thanks for coming. All right. Good evening, good evening, good evening. You know, look, this is always a good moment for me when I come to a town hall and Mary Pat is with me and the hold room was in the pro shop. So it was pretty good. I could do Christmas shopping at the same time I was getting ready to do a town hall. So thank you all. And let me start off by saying Merry Christmas to everybody. This is going to be our last town hall before Christmas. And so I think it's smart for all the candidates to leave you alone for a little while and let you enjoy your Christmas celebration. We're going to go back to New Jersey tomorrow and get ready. I have to start my shopping. And so that is going to be interesting. And we all want you to enjoy Christmas and have a great, great day. I do want to introduce her, even though you all know her. My wife, Mary Pat, is here with us tonight. So, you know, I don't have a canned stump speech. I don't have something that I memorized at the beginning of the campaign and that I use every time I start something like this. One, because I think it's disrespectful to all of you if I just say the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And two, to tell you the truth, I'd be pretty damn bored to be saying it over again. So I spend time in the car when I'm on my way to the town hall meeting thinking about, like, what do I really want to talk about tonight? And what's important for you to hear tonight from me? And what I thought on my way over here was that because we're getting ready to celebrate Christmas, because we're getting ready to celebrate, hopefully with family and friends and other loved ones on Monday, that we talk more tonight, at least I talk more tonight. You can ask whatever questions you like once we get to that point. But I talk to you tonight about what kind of country we want to be. You know, we can talk about all the individual problems and issues, and we'll get into those during the questions. And there are plenty of them to talk about, and plenty of work that needs to be done, and plenty of problems that need to be solved. But in the end, being president is much more than just a list of tasks on a to-do sheet that you either cross off for being accomplished or put question marks next to as to whether or not you can actually get it done or not. It's much more than that. And I think that we've made the presidency, over the course of the last three presidencies in particular, too small, really small. That somehow this is some like business person who walks into an office and has certain tasks to perform and either does them or doesn't, and then they're judged up or down based on that. In my view, that's never what the presidency has been about when we've been at our greatest. When we've been at our greatest, the presidency has been about having someone in that job who inspires us. Someone who we look at and we say, wow, we're really proud. Proud to have that person sitting there and representing our country around the world. We don't have a king or a queen. We have a president. And that person represents us not only here in this country and in every neighborhood, but all around the world. And we've made it much too small. Barack Obama started making it small because, in my view, he made it about himself. He was the cause, not you. He was Mr. Hope and Change. The poster for his campaign was like an artist's depiction of him with the word hope under him, not under you. And he kind of acted that way, in my opinion, for 8 years. It was more about him than it was about us. And that's not where we should be. And say what you want about President Bush 43, agree with some of his decisions, disagree with others, but it never really was about him. And this changed when Obama came in. And then Donald Trump came. If there was ever someone who made the presidency all about him, it's Donald Trump. And he made us even smaller in another way because he divided us. He divided us and pitted us against each other. He identified for all of us who our enemies inside the country were. He calls everybody names. And I've been subject to that during this campaign as much or more than anybody. Probably me and Ron gotten the most names called over the course of the last 7 or 8 months. And all he really cares about is what he told me early in the presidency. I was in the White House and he said to me, Chris, this is the most luxurious place I've ever lived in my life. Do you know that I have somebody who shines my shoes every morning and somebody who steams my suits and ties every morning and helps me get dressed? This is the greatest place I've ever lived in my life. Now, of all the things that you could say to someone, and at that time, it was 2017, so I'd known him for 16 years. And I was the governor at the time. And for all the things you could tell someone about the presidency, what it's like to be president of the United States, for him, what it's like to be one of only 44 men in the 250 years of this country to have the honor to be president of the United States. He talks to me about shined shoes and steamed suits and who helps him get dressed in the morning. Meanwhile, this is a guy who claims to be a billionaire. So you would think, if he really is, he could afford to have somebody in his Trump Tower apartment or in his house at Mar-a-Lago or the place in Bedminster, New Jersey to shine his shoes and to steam his suit and help him to get dressed in the morning. What really excited him about it, I think, was that we were paying for it, not him. And that was the best thing he could say about being president early on. Tells you everything you need to know. And for Joe Biden, this is like, the presidency is like a gold watch. It's his retirement gift for, 40 years of service in the United States Senate and 8 years of service as vice president. At the end, Joe Biden, who had lost for president 3 different times, finally ran up against the guy he could beat, the luckiest guy in the world. Just the way Donald Trump was the luckiest guy in the world 4 years before that, because he ran against the only person he could have possibly beaten, in Hillary Clinton. And karma's a bitch, as they say. And 4 years later, it turned around, Trump turned out to be the only candidate that Biden could have beaten. But when Joe Biden got there, that's the way he treated the job, like a retirement gift. He looks tired. He looks old. He doesn't look up to it. Doesn't tell us the truth. Because if he told us the truth, he'd say, I'm old and tired. And what am I doing here? But see, his family is enjoying it too much. We can watch them do it, right? Jill Biden's at like every important football game there is, traveling all over the country in Air Force One. We all know what Hunter's been up to. His daughter not paying her taxes. His brother, his sister, all making money off of having the last name of Biden. About them. It's not about us. This country is its greatest when it's about you. And that the person who's president sees themselves as a vehicle to help you be the best you can be, to help your family be the happiest it can be, to get the heck out of your way and let you run your lives the way you want to do the basic things we're supposed to do, take care of those who can't take care of themselves, protect you from crime, protect you from foreign invasion, and to set up the basics that allow our free enterprise system to work so that everybody who has a dream can help to make their lives the most they can possibly make it. And a president has to do those things when we're at our best, and then find the ways to challenge you and challenge the country to be even better. You know, George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, our first three, they stood up and said, it's not good enough to be a part of Great Britain. We want our own country. And the only way we'll truly be free and control our own lives is to be our own country. And if you took a poll, which everyone seems to be slaves to these days, if you took a poll, the Crown would have won big time. The American people were not ready to fight the biggest, strongest army in the world for their independence. But Washington and Adams and Jefferson and Franklin and Hamilton inspired us to be more, to be better, and they led us. And 3 of those 5 wound up being our first 3 presidents. And I don't think that's any coincidence. And in the middle of the next century, when this country was even more divided than it is today, and Abraham Lincoln could have just let the South go, he didn't. He said, no, this country needs to remain united, and I'm willing to fight to do it, and I need you to come with me. And to this day, we still lost more people in that war, more Americans in that war than any war we've ever fought. 600,000 Americans in a much, much, much smaller country gave their lives to keep this country together. And it was Lincoln who inspired us to do it. And in his second inaugural address, when he could have been taking the victory lap of the century, instead, he urged us to have charity to all and malice toward none. Imagine an American president today saying to the American people, have charity towards all and malice towards none. Can't imagine some of these characters saying that, can you? They want malice towards whoever they want you to have malice towards, so it gives them more power. Lincoln, at the height of the most powerful presidency this country has ever seen, didn't make himself more powerful. He urged us to our better angels. He said, put aside the bitterness and the anger and be better. We're better than that. That's a great president. When Franklin Roosevelt confronted the most horrible, ugly aggression the world had ever seen from Nazi Germany, he didn't tell us to fill the moat and pull up the drawbridge and let Europe worry about Europe. He said, we stand for freedom here, which means we stand for freedom everywhere. And he inspired us to go to Europe and to Asia and to fight that war for freedom. 500,000 Americans gave their lives in that war. But we came out of it bigger and stronger and richer and freer than we had ever been. And we set an example for the rest of the world that lasts barely, but still lasts to this moment. And that was 82 years ago that he said we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Inspired us to do better. And not just with slogans, but with actions. That's a great president. John Kennedy told us to ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Can you imagine one of these characters saying that today? Ask not what I can do for you, but what you can do for your country. They wouldn't dare. They'd be scared. It doesn't poll well. It doesn't poll well to ask you to sacrifice. It doesn't poll well to ask you to care about others. It doesn't poll well to do anything but say, get yours while you're watching me get mine. And he said, we're going to go to the moon by the end of this decade and return a man safely to Earth. And I can tell you, because I've read all the history on it, he had no godly idea how he was going to do it. Not one. But what he had confidence in was us. He knew he wasn't going to accomplish it. In fact, he didn't even live for another 18 months after he said it. But he knew that we could do it if he set the goal for us and inspired us to do it. He had confidence in us. That's a great president. And Ronald Reagan, in a time when our country had double-digit inflation and double-digit interest rates and double-digit unemployment, when we had lines to get gasoline and odd even days to get gas based on our license plates, when we had the Soviets in Afghanistan and our hostages in Iran, and I was a brand new voter, getting ready to turn 18 years old. And I was hopeless. I was a freshman in college. Nobody I knew could get a job. My father had lost his. And the world was led by a president who told us it was our fault, that we had a malaise about us. Not his fault, our fault. And Ronald Reagan got elected president, and he said, government isn't the solution to the problem. Government is the problem. He took responsibility for the problems. He didn't lay it on us. And then he told us that the Soviet Union was the evil empire and that we were not going to let their aggression stand. And imagine this, 10 years later, the Soviet Union no longer existed because he led us to believe that we should sacrifice to fight them. And he beat them without ever raising a gun or firing a shot or asking for one American to give their life. Just sacrifice some of our money and he would get it done. And as he left office, he told us that America would always be a shining city on the hill, a place that others wanted to come to because of everything we could achieve together. That's a great president. Not the garbage we have to choose from right now. Who stand up on a podium in this state just last weekend and say that immigrants from South America and Asia and Africa poisoned the blood of our country. And we have a large number of people in our party who say, that's who I want for president. That's how I want to be represented around the world. Someone who stands up and says that when I'm charged with crimes, I'm doing it for you. What exactly is that doing for you? A billionaire from New York who stands up and says, woe is me. Everybody's picking on me. That's a leader? That's a coward. A coward who your mother would teach you from the time you were a child A coward is someone who won't take responsibility for their own conduct, who's always looking to point the finger at somebody else and lay the blame somewhere else. It's never my fault. Their hand gets caught in the cookie jar and it wasn't there. The window is broken with the baseball on the inside and he's got his glove in his hand and he said, "Wasn't me. I didn't break the window." That's who the front runner is in the Republican primary, according to these polls, for President of the United States. We should be ashamed. As a party, we should be ashamed that we're even considering him for this job. We deserve better. But we're not going to get it if we don't do it for ourselves. We can't stand by anymore and say this will fix itself. And I got into this race for president because everybody in my party who was offering themselves to be president of the United States were acting like it was going to fix itself. Don't mention his name. Don't criticize him. Don't incur his wrath. Don't do anything that's risky. Play it safe and hope that you fix the problem for us. That's not what leadership is supposed to be, everybody. We're supposed to fix the problems for you. That's what you hire us for. Leadership is about looking at you and saying, this is the problem. I know it. Follow me. We'll fix it together. Instead, he wants you to return him to the most luxurious place he's ever lived in his life so he can get his shoes shined and his suit steamed and someone help him to get dressed in the morning. I'm sorry. I can't stand by and silently acquiesce to that when I know the history of this country and what we can be and what we should demand and what we're entitled to as Americans for how hard we work every day and how much we believe in the underlying principles of this country. We will never love this country fully again until we love each other again. Until we have love in our hearts for every American, whether they're a Democrat or a Republican, whether they're independent, whether they're black or white or brown, whether they're rich or poor. If we don't do that, we will never be able to truly love this country, because no leader who says they love America can truly love them if they tell you to hate other Americans. If they tell you they're going to kick people out of this country who they call fascists, who say they're going to use the power of the office of the presidency to punish their enemies. He's telling you all this before he does it. The audacity is extraordinary. And we sit by, and I tell you, I run into voters in this state and other places all the time who say, well, you know, he got screwed in the last election, and so we owe it to him to give him back again. Well, he lied about that, but he's telling the truth now. He wants to be back there because he wants to be on a vengeance tour. He said, I will be your retribution. The theme of his campaign in 2016 is, I am your voice. 8 years later, he says, I am your retribution. I know he's a liar. But knowing him as well as I do now for 22 years, let me give you a hint. He's telling the truth this time. This is his last show. It's the last episode of The Apprentice. Except he's the apprentice. And we're hiring him for the most important job in the world while the world is on fire. While there's wars in Europe and in the Middle East and an aggressor in China and invasions at the border from Mexico. While all this is going on, we're hiring a guy who's telling us that he's in it only for himself. And what you can do to help make his life better. Well, you know, Ron DeSantis won't say anything about it. And Nikki Haley hasn't said anything about it. And Vivek Ramaswamy endorses it and just says, hey, bud, clear the way, because I'm only 38, so when you go, I'd like to try this next. This sounds pretty cool to me. And I am proud to be the lone voice saying it. I am proud to stand up here in front of all of you tonight as I've stood in front of crowds all over this state and will continue to, saying the truth. And I don't care that it makes some people angry. I don't understand why they're so scared of the truth. How do I tie this to Christmas? You're saying to yourself. He started this saying he was inspired by Christmas.
Give this country the best present.
Well, here's what it is. That's not bad, but it's not what I'm saying. I'm doing a house party tomorrow morning. I'll use yours tomorrow morning. What the Bible teaches us is that the strength of Jesus Christ was because he was the truth. It says it in the Bible. I am the truth. I am the way. For those of us who believe in that, that's why Christmas reminded me to say those things. Because what we remember, and what I hope we all remember next Monday, is that we celebrate his birth because he was the truth. He was the way. And as my Jewish friends say to me, look, we got no problem with Jesus. We think he was a really good guy. We just don't think he was the guy. That's what you guys think. Nobody in this country would have an objection to saying that he was a man who stood for truth and died for us, for the truth. That's what he sacrificed. And that story starts again on Monday with his birth and continues until the spring when we commemorate his passing. What are we going to be willing to sacrifice between Monday and the spring for our country? There's nothing more I can do than this. This is what I know how to do. This is what I was sent here to do. And I believe it's my mission. And so I'm going to do it. But I can't do it without you. It can't happen without you. The dark forces who have turned this country small and angry want to keep in control. The greatest thing about the country that Washington and Adams and Jefferson and Franklin and Hamilton gave us was they said, we decide. Not a king, not King George III, and not King Donald I. We decide. And so that's what this race is really all about. Yeah, we've got economic issues. And yeah, we have an immigration problem. And yes, we have wars around the world. And yes, we have a drug addiction problem in this country. And yes, we have an education problem in this country. All of those things are true. But if we blow who we put in charge of it, none of the rest of it's going to get fixed anyway. Character. Character. Character is what matters the most. And we've got a big decision to make. You got a big one to make in 4 weeks. And you all have no excuses. You know, if you live in New Jersey and your primary is not till June 5th, well, you know it's pretty much going to be over by then. Nothing's over now. You're the first. You've been given that privilege and that responsibility by the people of this country. And on January 23rd, we're going to see what you're going to do with it. But if he's back and he wins here on January 23rd, New Hampshire will have no one to blame but themselves. You'll be the ones who sent him off on the limo ride back to the most luxurious place he's ever lived in his life. Because the only thing standing between, at that point, standing between him and the White House will be 82-year-old Joe Biden. That is a very, very thin barricade, everybody. Very thin. So I'm challenging you as we leave here to take a few days away from the politics of the first in the nation primary, to think over the Christmas weekend what in your heart you want for this country, what in your heart you want for your family, what in your heart you want for our future, and then decide. I want your vote, of course I do. Wouldn't be here if I didn't. But what matters much more to me is that you search yourself to find out what you believe is the right thing to do for the country and then act on it. If you do that, that's all I can ever ask of you. And the rest of it is going to be up to the person you pick and what kind of person they are and what kind of leader they'll be or not. And so feel empowered by your position and feel enlightened and lifted up by this holiday. It is about birth and about a new beginning. And we need a new beginning for this country, built on the foundation of our past, but a new beginning for our country. I'm running to try to give you that new beginning, and I'll give you every ounce of energy I have to try to do it. But we got to do it together.